First item is approval of agenda. Is there any additions? We're hoping not.
Slow move.
So
Second.
moved. All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. Is there any conflict of interest? Seeing none, we'll move on. The first item is presentation. I see we have the people from the museum. I recognize Paul and Bernice and the young feller I don't.
We'll present, we'll introduce.
Okay, so whoever's presenting, take the mic, please.
Hello, bonsoir. Good evening to you all. And with me, Paul d'Entremont. Great, so I know everybody around the table, and everybody knows me. And you see Bernice, you know, who is our part-time employee. We only pay her part-time, but she works full-time and a half. And with her is Chris Boudreau, Chris Boudreau is originally from Yarmouth. He is a social worker by profession, but also a very interested person in genealogy. And he is one of our volunteers. And now that he's working full-time, we see less of him, but he's still working. And then Shannon is one of our volunteers also. Shannon comes in with an Evelyn Chan every Tuesday, if possible. And every time I go in, she's there making photocopies of the documents that have to be preserved. Okay? So she's doing very well appreciated work. So tonight, you've all received our presentation. And I'm not going to read it all. Okay? First of all, who we are, la Société historique acadienne de Pubnico-Ouest, especially our programs, our facilities. Okay? Just to remind you, though, also that the Société historique, the Historical Society, started in 1973, and then in 1984, we became a registered society, non-profit, and the purpose or the mission and the statement is to preserve the history, genealogy, of our local areas. But in doing genealogy, it doesn't always stop in the area. Naturally, it goes beyond. As Chris was saying on the way in tonight, he is which generation? For your the Boudreau side. Goes back to 1628 in Quebec and Ontario. Okay, so that's how far. So it doesn't limit itself to the Yarmouth County area. Okay, so especially on the archives, you've all heard and seen the archives. What we've seen of Father Clarence d'Entremont, and the documents that we have, his collection. And also the collection that we have is a lot of it is on genealogy, okay? But also the history, and all of you in our communities, you've known that he's written the history and genealogy of most of our communities in the district of Argyle. We have been told on many occasions that the collection that we have is beyond 6,000 documents of the documents or the collection of Father Clarence d'Entremont and H. Léon d'Entremont are very well, they're known over everywhere and with respect also and well known. A few years ago, because of the archives, our emphasis on the archives versus the museum, the archives, with a federal funding through a COA and all kinds of other funding through the local area, we had an extension built on and had a vault and climate-controlled rooms on 2 floors because of the archives and the documents, because we have documents that predate the deportation and then after deportation. Okay? And one area that we have an emphasis on is on genealogy. Okay? And just to give you an example, so was it 10, 12 years ago, this is the 5 generations of Jacques de Mius d'Entremont and Marguerite Amiro. It's only 5 generations. Now, on Thursday last week, our genealogy database has gone over 100,000. We're at 100,001 and 100,002. And if we were to put those 100,000 database in books, it would be 20 times the height of this book. Okay?
That represents 5,000 names.
Yeah, 5,000 names. So you multiply by 20. So we have 20 volumes this size. It's a very expensive project, so everything is database and electronic now, okay? And also on that one, if any who has Acadian descent or connection, you can come to the museum and say, okay, I want my genealogy, and it will be printed, and you pay according to the number of pages, okay? We also have many people, okay? When people talk about archives and you say the number of people who use your facilities, well, they say, that's not very much. But it's a specialized area, and it's people who want to do research, a lot of them, like Chris, who, by interest. We also have students who come in because they're in university and doing research in those areas. And we have people who come from out of the parts of the Atlantic provinces, Canada, and the US, who wish to do research on that genealogy. Okay? So, for example, in 2014, we had 110 people who came to use the archives, and 154 in 2017. So as you get known throughout the area and further beyond, and we also had some France who have come in. Okay? The admission fees, as they are here with the Argyll Township Courthouse, the admission fees in our areas, we can't say, well, to come in you have to pay $20. Okay? So it says there's a limit to the amount of money that people are willing to pay. But some willing people, who especially researchers, they will come in and they will say, okay, they like this, and they will give you a donation, okay, to supplement on that one. Watching the time here at the same time. Also, everything is located in our museum, and we have also acquired what we refer to as the barn, but now called La Salle Pauline de Viat. It used to be on the farm, the barn that belonged to the house, okay, part of the family. And that was used by different people, was used as storage area, and it was donated to us. And it was also a storage for oil and furnace fuel sometimes. And we said, is it going to be any good for us? Can we use it with the environment today? And it passed the environmental test. The barn is over 100 years old, and they just removed one part of the sill. So maybe the oil did the preservation. So that was donated to us, and that is now an area where we can store, and it's also meeting rooms. And also we use that as an exhibit room, and in the summertime it's part of our gift shop with specialty on quilts and local crafts from the area. You will see also on page 3 what the TripAdvisor has had to say about us. So in summary, our mandate and purpose as a historical society is to create a creativity, innovation, and economic growth. And there you see how we do that with crafts and so forth. Also cultural diversity. And when I mentioned earlier about the 100,001, 100,002 in genealogy, and just to give it an example, it goes beyond the area of the Acadian area of La Baronnie de Pubnico, or this area, the area of Argyll. The family names are Déon on one side and Lévesque on the other side. And the Lévesque's a big, he's deceased, now called him Lévesque, okay? His grandchildren. So it goes beyond the Lévesque. We're not Acadians from the beginning, so therefore that's where you do the connections, and it goes beyond the area, just to give us an example. Okay? So, and we have cultural diversity, and also the cultural stewardship. And it's also with pleasure that we received on our property last summer the Monument de l'Odyssée, which is in honor of the Acadians and the development in the district of Argyll, dating back to 1653. So therefore, naturally, when people come in, a lot of times it's for funding, and that's our purpose this evening. We are not asking for a yearly contribution so that La Société historique will be able to meet all the requirements, qualifications for an effective research center. Okay? What we are, in this proposal, seeking financial assistance for a part-time archivist. And the archivist is essential for the preservation of these documents and collections. We say part-time and for starting off at 3 days a week. We did research on what the salary base would be for an archivist in the province of Nova Scotia through Nova Scotia Archives. They came back to us and they said if you're in central Canada, it would be anywhere between 50 and 70,000. In Nova Scotia, if you're qualified, it's 40 to 50,000. Now, archivists are not found on every street corner, as they say. It's a specialty, and in our areas, as it was with your case here with the township, the museum here, and the courthouse, it's on-the-job training. So on-the-job training, when we're looking at the Nova Scotia employment program, they say $15, $16, $17, okay, for on-the-job training. So we estimate that for 3 days a week for 1 year would be $18,338. So the archivist, though, to do his or her work and to do the preservation, you just can't go and use a banana box that you got from the store. It has to be specialized boxes that have to be acid-free, that have to be pest-free. It's like a pest control, and that's why you have to have the vault and the climate control. We have that one also. We also apply, as you are very much aware, for yearly grants for specific projects, i.e., example, over the past years and past year, and again probably this year, minor renovations, for example, windows, painting, also for festivals and events. So in this situation, the Société will maintain the responsibility of ownership and operation of the facilities. In conclusion, we would like to invite you, Mr. Warden and councillors, to visit our facilities, for those of you who have not done so, and we will be available to show you who we are and to answer questions that you may have, and also to see how the Argyle Township Courthouse and Archives and les Archives Père Clarence d'Entremont are complementary to each other, and also to discuss and explore further enhanced partnerships. Okay? Because a lot of this material that you have in Tuscot is complementary and vice versa. And also we found out that the work that we do on genealogy is different than what is being done in this facility. And you have people, when I say you, it belongs to the part of it to the municipality, is that what they do, they're complementary, or it's beyond, and we are complementing on that one. So it's like two working together, okay? So therefore, 10 minutes have gone by. Thank you for listening to us, and trusting that you will consider our request and proposal. And if you have any further questions or clarifications or precisions, we will gladly provide them to further the meeting and the discussions that you may have. Merci bien.
Thank you, Paul. Deputy Warden Muse?
Yes, the request of 18,000, that would be an ongoing. You're looking for that like on a yearly basis.
Of course.
As long as that person is hired.
course.
Yes, it's not, you're not asking for one time.
No.
This is
It should be
for
an
us
ongoing.
to add that to our budget.
And again, naturally, as the person becomes qualified,
Right.
if they are not qualified yet, naturally, as you well know, salaries will probably increase. Okay?
And for the researchers, where do most of your researchers come from? Like, are they from all over? Are they usually tourists that come around, people from here that used to live here that live away, or what's?
One of the ways that we make money at the research center would be doing genealogy so that people can go to do their Métis status. So those, they have to be in this area. We do not have the First Nation people of all throughout, so they have to be from this area. Also the Clare, this area, and as far as Barrington, if the names are in our database. But the others, we've had people from Louisiana. It's very easy to find the first ones that came to l'Acadie. We have, our library is quite stacked up, with all the books. So for them to find out, for for us, it's not hard to find who was the first muse, who was the first Surette, who was the first Déon. It's not hard, but for them, if they come from Louisiana, they don't have access. So we have people from Louisiana, people from Quebec.
Okay.
They carry names like,
New England states.
New England states are the ones that do come in, and people, as you said, from France. They come in, if they have Acadian names, it's something,
Or links.
links that we can find. We don't have them in our database, but we have links if they can say their grandfather, or we can almost all the time say who was the first one that came to l'Acadie.
And also, in answer to your question, we have, when you say the people, yes, from the area, but we have also researchers, people doing studies at university that want to complement on that. We have people from other universities. Okay?
Or writing papers.
Or for writing papers, as is the case with Chris, okay? And then people by interest of who their families are and where they are linked, okay? So these are the people, basically, it was from across the board, in other words.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Stewart?
Maybe this should go to the CAO, or maybe Paul might know this. One, I see that there's $604 in municipal taxes. So non-profit.
No, it's because of the extra properties that we have.
I get
When we
you. I
acquired
thought it
the
was
property of where I
a
mentioned earlier, the
musée.
barn.
You shouldn't pay taxes.
Yeah,
I
we've
thought.
acquired the property that extends to the north of that.
So you had to pay.
Donated to us, so therefore it's not taxable. It is taxable.
Taxable, yeah. Okay.
Also the
Fire tax.
Fire tax as well.
The nonprofit organizations are not exempt from the fire service.
Thank you very much. I didn't realize that. Can I have another question?
You sure can.
Looking at what you're asking for, I saw that you had lost $1,770 last year. And if you look at the budget, prior year was $3,300. I see you've got $35,000 in investments, and I'm not picking on that. To me, that's good. I guess the question is, without the full amount, you can't put half in. I was going to say, okay, could you put half in for this archivist? So we put 9,000, we put 10,000, you put 10,000 in. Split it. So what I'm saying, if we funded you 10,000, can you make it work?
We can make it work, but to do it that way, we have to go into our investment, and therefore it doesn't take long for that to be depleted.
This is my question, and you've answered it.
And it's always advisable that you keep a reserve unless it's in the
100%.
thousands, hundreds of thousands and thousands, right?
Yeah. That's it.
30,000 seems like a big figure, but when you look at structures, anything can happen. We've had problems with pumps, we've had problems with furnaces and so forth, so today's prices, it doesn't take long for that to be depleted.
We would like to be as famous enough to have that extra cash, like people coming in,
Yeah.
but we haven't reached that yet.
I do understand that, and yeah, you're doing a great job there. I've been in a couple of times.
It is, I mean, we have to say that 90% of this is through volunteers or through special projects that we may have. And that's why over time, volunteers, there's a limit of how much work that the volunteers can come in. So, okay, for example, Shannon and Evelyn, they come in, like I said, every Tuesday, and they are there, they spend the day. But again, it keeps accumulating and so forth. And also, we've recently acquired, this is partly new, on a couple of occasions, donations from the family of deceased veterans.
Okay.
So that he stays here, and it was requested to the family, and the family says, well, we might as well, will the museum, the archives, like to have that? And so forth. As a matter of fact, Mr. Donaldson and Mr. Digdon were there when we had the Surette one, okay?
We also, just this week, I mean, it just has started, Yesterday, we had volunteers that put up all the decoys, the carved decoys for Richard D'Entremont. Took them all afternoon, which they did that display. Today, we had 4 people tilling and doing all the garden work behind the museum for the museum.
Not killing, tilling.
Tilling for that to grow. And also people, 2 person in our archives, just volunteers. The week has just started, so that's how most of it goes on, yeah.
Interesting, yeah.
There's no more questions from council or CAO. Muse has a question.
Just one question on your, une question sur les revenus fédéraux et provinciaux. Est-ce que c'est les revenus que vous avez besoin d'appliquer pour tous les ans? Is it annual?
Oui.
So you're having to apply for that fund,
Oui.
for those funds every year, and you're not certain, I'm assuming, you're not certain of the amount each year?
And on that one, if I may, both the Argyle Township, us, Yarmouth County Museum, in Nova Scotia there are two levels of museums. There are the provincial museums, of which le Village Acadien is one. Okay, and then there are community museums, as this one in Tuscot, Yarmouth, ours, Barrington, Clare. These are community museums. And a few years ago, the provincial government, through Department of Culture and so forth, said, yes, if you have to be evaluated every 3 years, okay? And it's based on evaluation. So we started a few years ago at 10,000, and he said, that's frozen, okay? Same thing happened with this one here in Tuscot, happened everywhere. You're frozen, it stays there, you don't go down. Well, every year went down, 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 on to 4. So we've gone now through an evaluation, and politicians keep saying, okay, we need to put money in there, but we're still waiting. So we'll come back to you. Okay, so provincial funds are guaranteed, but not guaranteed.
Right.
Okay, depending on
Guaranteed-
provincial coffers.
Guaranteed in donation, but not in
Yeah.
amount.
Yeah.
I get you.
But our evaluation, if I may, on that one, the evaluation that was done last summer, we were very lucky with the results. Our evaluation average was 78, which is high, okay? Because of the 78, which is high for volunteer-based institutions. Those who have the registered archivists and researchers and so forth, naturally they get more. But then you have to qualify that. It has to be qualified by the amount of staff and qualifications that these people have.
The part, if I may add, the part of the provincial funds that we receive would be from festival and events. So
Also plus, yeah.
plus that which you see is not all for the community map program. We get, if we apply for festival and events, for example, our quilt show, we get funding for that, and different projects that will come our way that we can apply to have funding. None go to the research center.
Those goes on for the ongoing activities.
Yes.
Okay, any more questions? Okay. Councillor Goodley?
Thank you. It's not so much a question as a statement. I know it's a great source of information there about the Acadian descendants and all that, because I've called Bernice on God knows how many occasions over the years because of my other job that I do, and she always can find an answer for me. And I actually had brought it up to a CAO before of trying to get some funding for these people down there. And like he said, make a presentation, because I believe this is the first presentation from your organization.
No, we've had some in the past.
For
In the past, yeah.
For funding.
For research.
The research center.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we've even allowed, for those people who have seen it, when you walk into the museum, we have panels of family names. Like the D'Entremont is the one that has the most, and then Dayon, Amiro, and so forth. And we've even allowed Digdon to be listed on there.
Anyway, I'll just keep smiling. Yeah. But no, you're doing a great job down there.
Okay, thank you.
Honestly, it's a big part of the community, and there's always something going on around there. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Paul, and we'll give this serious consideration. Usually at a later committee of the whole meeting, we'll be discussing this ask, and I would encourage any of the councillors that haven't been to the museum to go. I've been several times, but I would encourage it.
It's good.
So thank you very much.
Merci.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for all you do.
Take care, Chris.
And I should mention, we had regrets. Could have mentioned it earlier. We had regrets from Councillor Calvin D'Entremont and Lucienne LeBlanc for work-related reasons. And Councillor Roderick Murphy was here earlier. He was very sick, so I sent him home. So we'll move on now. Adoption of the minutes, 138th Annual Council Meeting of April the 10th.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. Committee of the Whole, April 24th.
Slow move. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. Business arising from the minutes. One-page attachment, waiting for it to open,
There's none.
and there's none. That was a waste of time. Councilors' report, we'll start on the right this time. Councillor Albright, if you have
Lot of-
any.
I do. A lot of similar meetings that you, the warden, attended as well, but one of the ones that is a bit different, I guess, is I went to an EMO presentation with the fire marshal. So it was in Tuscan Falls. What was it?
Lake Vaughan.
Lake Vaughan, that's what I was looking for. And they had the fire marshal come down because there had been quite a few fatalities already this year in terms of fires, and they just wanted to have information sessions for people so that we're aware of what resources are out there to kind of help with educating people about fire safety. So that's that. And also Argyle Recreation Commission as well. Soccer is about to get going, and we're into late registration now at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Albright. Councillor Surratt.
I attended the Tuscan Wastewater committee meeting, and we passed the budget. The budget was passed at that meeting. Well, I say passed, we accepted the budget. It gets passed by municipal council. Then there was a $5 increase in the per unit or per household. Also attended the Industrial Commission in Yarmouth since our last meeting, and then we have a Waste Park committee meeting on purchasing a set of scales, which is coming next week, but I just want to make aware to council that the tender has come in, and we will be looking at that to accept the tender for a new set of scales for the waste park. It's overdue to be replaced. That's it.
Deputy Warden Hughes.
I also attended the fire safety meeting that we had in Lake Vaughan. It was a lot of eye-opening comments there that you don't realize how fast and how much time a person has once a fire starts in a house. But it was a very good presentation as far as I'm concerned. I really enjoyed and learned a lot in there. I attended the day of mourning at the town, the Lost at Sea Monument. We had a couple of speakers. Some of them were very touching and moving in some of the stories that we heard, especially from some of the one fire chief that was there, gave an excellent and very moving and emotional speech that he gave for sure. And the cruise ship MS Fram, I was at the dock when they were coming ashore, welcoming. The one thing about that cruise ship, I mean, you hear comments sometimes that maybe, what's the big deal with 100 people or so coming into town? But you got to realize that 90% of the people that were on that ship were travel agencies from all over the States, and I think it was great to have them come into town, and I think they were given a very, very good welcome for sure. And I think, with the comments that you heard, where they were impressed with the people of Yarmouth, how friendly and so. I think maybe, I mean, you don't know, but we could get some spin-off from that. I mean, they are travel agencies. People come to them for advice of where to go. So, other than that, I think that's it. Same meetings that Councillor Surratt was at the Tusket Wastewater and whatever, so that's all I have.
Thank you, Deputy Warden Hughes. Kathy?
Yeah, I attended also
Councillor Bork?
yeah. I attended the Yarmouth Area Industrial Commission as well, recreation. We went to the volunteer banquet, which was very nice. West Pubnico sewer meeting we had. And I attended the East Pubnico water utility. We met with the users and they gave instructions or gave guidance to the staff to see where to go with what has to be fixed with this water utility. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Councillor Digdon.
Thank you. Attended the MC the fundraiser for the Pubnico and Area Lions Club. Still getting prices on a generator set for the West Pubnico Fire Hall, which is also an EMO comfort center. And the West Pubnico Improvement Society, that I was hoping that we'd see get off the ground, that the last time I was here and gave a report, is now off the ground. They have a great crowd in there. I think that's going to be working very hard, and you should soon see nice things happening down around there. And not that there's not nice things happening now, but more nice things happening. And also attended the West Pubnico Sewer Committee, and the sewer plant is working very well according to all the reports that we're getting, and should also soon see a new truck that'll be helping it work much better and hopefully eliminating the smell that they've had for quite a while down, more so in the lower West Pubnico area. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Digdon. Next is Warden's report. I'm looking here, I think everybody's mentioned pretty well everything. I will mention how successful the volunteer banquet was, though. That was a great event held in the great community of Quinnen. And it was well attended and very impressive, and a great job. We'll move on to staff report, and I'll turn it over to CAO Muse.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Just going to go over some of the highlights of the report. Obviously, it's a X amount of page long report, like 13 or 15. Anyway, so first things first, I just wanted to announce the last of the tender for the Wedgeport septic tank project have gone out. So that work should be completed by May into June. That project will be completed at that time. The admin building, we have the FCM grant and loan application was successfully submitted prior to the deadline. Wild Salt completed final design and tenders will be released very soon. I don't have an exact date on that. The building committee will have the opportunity to see the final walkthroughs, so we're hoping for a 3D rendering prior to them going to tender, which has been requested by quite a few people, both staff and the committee as well. Would like to see exactly what it looks like on the inside rather than just kind of guess. And we have seen pictures. It's not that we haven't seen something, but to see the flow of how it's planned would be very interesting. The Airport Corporation, just the CBCL completed its assessment of the runway and lighting, and we have some meetings set up for the MLA and the MP so that they're aware of that information. We did, Clark Sigfridson and I being acting in the acting manager's role for the airport, presented a fiscal request to the municipality of Clare this Monday, something like that. No, last Wednesday. And we are planning a meeting with, and of course we're in the final year of funding for that, so we have to focus our attention on the funding agreement that will be negotiated with our two partners. The Oakbrook Fire Department is working fast on the new fire hall. They have a meeting on the 10th, the ratepayers meeting at 7 p.m. and they'll be asking the residents to accept an increase of the rate from 4.5 to 7.5 due to the planned construction of the new fire hall. They have a location and they have a draft design, which I imagine they'll refine over the next 12 months before they actually move into a tender mode. It looks like the estimated cost could approach $2 million. So that's of course based on a draft drawing. Obviously that will be influenced and impacted as we go through. So, but to give you an impression of the magnitude of the project, you should be aware that it's about $2 million. provincial work. I'm actually returning from a municipal modernization meeting, which was with a core group of individuals across Nova Scotia, both political and non-political personnel. We had, for instance, locally we had Angelique Leblanc and Alistair Surrett attended this meeting. It was a 3-hour meeting. And it was to identify, here are the areas of municipal modernization that the UNSM, AMA, and the province are going to be examining. Do these areas make sense? So the 3 areas that were discussed were the potential for revenue sharing at a higher level, future revenue sharing, the possibility of infrastructure planning, regional infrastructure planning, as opposed to individual municipalities planning individually for infrastructure, and the third was for regional regional land use planning and the like. So we currently have a shared planning service with the municipality of Yarmouth, but we do not have a shared regional plan. We have individual plans that are done by a shared person. So that's different. So those are the 3 areas that we said that we would considerably, or have the potential to considerably improve the communication and the effectiveness of municipal government. So again, municipal modernization isn't about municipal government as it is about governance. So government, regional government would be amalgamation, would be dissolution, would be those.
Right.
Those are the tools for regional government, which that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about governance. How do we make decisions regionally while maintaining the structures of our municipalities? So while, some would tout that there are savings in amalgamation, there are also costs in amalgamation, and in some instances that might be the right answer, and in some instances it's not. And so this is creating another tool so that we can move into a different direction to work regionally. Finance department's been very busy around the budgets. We've been attending meetings, approving rates, and tonight, later on, you will be seeing the operating reserve, operating fund, and capital reserve budgets. And I will stop there. And are there any questions or comments?
A Deputy Warden Hughes has one.
In the modernization, is that something that, okay, you're working on a plan? Is that something, do you have a deadline that it's gonna happen and municipalities are gonna be told this is what you have to do? How is that gonna work? Or is each individual municipality gonna decide themselves on what they do and how and whatever?
Well, I think the answer is a combination of the two. So what the 3 organizations are trying to create is the environment where the municipalities can actually create their future as opposed to being dictated what that future looks like. So we've seen instances where school boards have been, abolished, and other things like health authorities have been abolished in the interest of amalgamation or in the interest of doing things differently. This is not the approach the province has taken on municipalities, and I imagine the reason why is because there's so many of them with so many differing needs, and secondly, the province has seen the result of forced amalgamation. It's not pretty, so it doesn't work well. It doesn't achieve the right result. So what I think the plan is in the next 24 months, there's likely going to be a rollout of pilot projects.
Okay.
So what will happen is, we've been talking a lot about what it might look like, but eventually we're gonna say, let's try this, let's try that, let's try this. And it's most likely that those pilot projects will fail. And that's okay, because we'll learn from it, and we'll learn how to refine it, because at the end of the day, what we seek to achieve is to get a regional thinking around certain things. So what does regional mean? Regional will be defined by the region, not by central government. So one of the shortcomings of the RENs, for instance, was they drew 7 lines everywhere and said, here's the RENs. Well, there was no consultation as to what, in fact, where those regions actually impacted the economy. So you want to work with your neighbors that have the same or similar economy as you do in an enterprise network, in an economic development organization. So this is the same thing. So what is your region? How is it defined? How big does it have to be? And so that will come out of the discussions, hopefully. And I don't think it's going to be one single thing that will happen, but I imagine that once we have certain options available to us, that if they're successful, if the province likes them, they'll legislate those. So, for instance, if revenue sharing is something that the municipalities embrace, and they believe that would reduce competition, for instance, and, you know, because it's not where, you're not fighting for where the business is, you're collaborating to make sure the business is in the right place for your region, right? Instead of fighting for that little tax dollar that you might get. So those things, if that's embraced by the region, then that might be legislated, and then that would look whatever it would look like. We don't know what that looks like. We're actually building it as we go. So that's a totally really long answer.
No, it's okay.
If you wish me to speak long, ask me questions about airport and modernization. Keep quiet down.
Is there any more comments or questions on Councillor Surratt?
Did you get a feeling with your meeting in Clare? Did you get a feeling, any kind of a feeling, how they received you? Was there any gut feeling, or maybe we're on camera, maybe you don't want to say that, but how were you received, I guess?
I mean, I thought the council was very engaged. They were interested. They had very good questions. I think they felt it was a good presentation. Whether it results in a financial contribution, it's hard to tell. But I was well received, so was
That's what I
Carmen,
want to
very
know.
well received,
Good.
and it was a very worthwhile exercise.
Glad to hear it. Good job.
Any more questions? If not, we'll move on. The next item, strategic priority topics, I see none. Next one is number 10 for decisions. And the first one is 2018 council priorities. This is a document that was put together after several meetings. And it's sort of a guide for municipal staff to follow for councillors, or council's top priorities for the upcoming year. For example, the municipal building, improved rural internet, dangerous and unsightly premises, the Wedgeport Wastewater project, East Pubnico water utility project that runs the fish plants in that area. And this just needs to be approved. Would anybody like to comment on this document? Are we ready to pass it? Motion will be in order.
And I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. Next one, tourism signage installation cost approval. Is this one for Chris, or is Ellen? Who would like to speak on this one?
Chris can certainly speak on this, or do you want me to speak? Okay, well, thank you. So this is for your approval. This is for the installation of the signage for the tourism. So what you have here is a purchase order. The amount is in excess of $10,000, which means it requires your approval. So not just your well wishes. So the price, the lowest price was from Post-Tech Screw Piles from Yarmouth, or actually Tuscan area. And supply installed Post-Tech Screw Piles, 9,000 plus HSTs, or a total of 10,350. We're quite satisfied with that, and we would recommend for the approval.
So move.
Second.
Anyhow, it's been moved and seconded several times.
Kind of woke him up.
There was
All
a-
in favor? All in favor?
Aye.
Against?
I thought I heard an echo, but
For moving and seconding.
Hearing no
but
nays, I'll assume it was carried. Motion carried. The next one is to do with the Wedgeport sewer replacement project for the last two systems, I believe. And we have attenders. And go ahead, CL.
So we applied our policy for local, and I'd like to bring that up because we did receive a question of clarification on this from one of the bidders. So for the interests of full transparency, I'd like to disclose that. And I'm just gonna pull up the policy here for you, it's just coming up here with a slow computer. So this is about our purchasing policy that relates to local businesses. Okay, so one of them is located in Yarmouth, and the other is located in Digby County, the business proper. Okay, just there it is. Okay, so I just want to open this before recommending approval, to go over how the policy addresses this particular item, so that you can be satisfied one way or another that this was handled properly. So, right, here we are. Okay. Local preference, section 11. Municipal staff or council must give preference to purchasing goods and services from local businesses in accordance with the following. So it says local businesses. Okay? If the goods and services available from a local business are equal in providing the best value to those available as a non-local, the goods and services from a local business must be purchased. In evaluating which goods or services offer best value to the municipality, a municipality must apply a preference of 10% to the price offered by a local business as compared to with non-local business, okay? And then if it's less than $5,000, the municipality can apply a preference of up to 40% of the price. Now, this is clearly not $5,000, so clearly the 10% would apply if this happens. So there is a definition of local business in the act, in the bylaw. I should say policy, there we go, that's the right word. Local preference is any supplier of goods and or services located in the municipality of Argyle. So that's the first test. In absence of an interested supplier from Argyle, any supplier of goods and or services located in Yarmouth County. And then in absence of that, then it would be Digby and Shelburne counties would be considered local. So the way we applied that was the home of the businesses, one is in Yarmouth County and one is in Digby County. And so our application was that because it's in Yarmouth County, that they would be entitled to the 10% rebate, which is why what you would have is a recommendation to select one over the other, even if the fee is higher. We received a complaint from the other bidder stating that he in fact owns property in the municipality of Argyle, which is true. However, that is not what the policy, that's not how the policy is worded. The policy is worded that the business is located in Argyle, not if you own property in Argyle. So it's, I think it's a legitimate point that he rose. However, based on the policy, we cannot actually effectively use that as a reason to give that particular company the better price. So therefore, the recommendation was for R&D Harris Excavating to do the work. So that's our recommendation to staff. It is up to you as council to apply that recommendation or not, based on your policy. I believe that the policy as interpreted would support what the staff is recommending.
I'll move that R&D Harris be awarded the contract.
I'll second it.
Should we put the amount of money in there, or you don't need to?
You can make reference to the document attached or to the amount, which is $33,976 and 30 cents per cent.
Yeah, I can put that.
Yeah.
Not a problem.
Okay, hearing no more discussion, all in favor?
All right.
All right.
Against, motion carried.
I just want to note, Mr. Warden, on that is you may receive communication around that from one of the contractors, and if if that position is considered valid by your council, it doesn't change this decision because we've applied the policy. However, your policies are subject to change at your discretion. If you feel that it requires us to review it, you can bring that up at a future meeting to review the policy, but we have applied the policy the way that it's written.
I think it's pretty good policy. I mean, it covers local, and I think it's something that we should be doing anyway, you know, giving preference to local.
Yes, and I should say, just to clarify, it's not on any and all tendered
No.
projects. So any over a certain amount, I believe it's 50,000, clerk, correct me if I'm wrong.
100 for services.
100 for services and 50 for goods. That local advantage does not apply. So it's designed specifically for jobs below those numbers, below those amounts. Because the larger amounts are, you know, they require a level of competition, and those are also, we don't want to deny, you know, while it's fine to support local businesses doing business in our area, we also don't want to deny them the opportunity to do business in other counties.
Right.
So for some of the larger projects, you know, certainly they would want an equal crack at that.
Makes sense.
Thank you. We'll move on to other business. New Wedgeport School, I see there's a media attachment to that. Is that for just information, or somebody would like to speak on that, or? See none?
I'd just like to.
Sure, go ahead.
So you should all be aware that this is, I mean, it's obviously great news for Wedgeport. Two things. Number one, we own this school. So if the location for a new school of Wedgeport is not at this location, then we will, according to, you know, historical accounts, we will be responsible for the old school. Meaning we will, meaning we will be responsible for what we feel should happen to that school. So typically, in some cases, it's either partial or full demolition. Sometimes it's sell to the lowest bidder, and sometimes it's reuse, or highest bidder. Yeah, lowest bidder is not a great move. And also,
listening.
Good, very good. I didn't pick that up.
just as listening, that's great. And the third option is to use it for your own purposes, right? So the community may want to use it for its purposes, and so that becomes kind of an issue that you should be aware of. So what we have is, you know, we have a school that has experienced a form of strategic neglect, for lack of a better term, because the school board was certainly looking to either a substantial renovation or a new construction, so you would defer, you know, logically you would defer maintenance on a school of that type, especially big maintenance, in anticipation of something else. So keeping that in mind, if they don't build on this location, that's going to be an issue for us that we have to be aware of.
Guaranteed.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, the next one is the ARC, request for support, and I believe at this point, they're asking to make a presentation to council as soon as reasonably possible to detail their plans for the facility, and they'll be asking council for a letter of support and financial contribution to the project with no amounts here, so is it council's wish to have them make a presentation?
Absolutely, I would certainly like for them to come here,
Okay.
give us what's going on. You know,
I think so.
Yep,
At least get,
details.
hear what they have.
so we'll have that arranged. I don't know when it will be. There's no committee of the whole in May. I don't believe the council committee of the whole for May.
It would more than likely be in June.
Okay.
Yeah. There's no committee of the whole in May, that's right.
The next item is Yarmouth Dispatch Service. There's a letter here outlining a whole lot. Would you like to speak on this? We rent the service. Service is in turmoil at the moment, I understand. So I will let you explain what it means to Argyle.
Sure, okay. So first of all, Argyle purchases the dispatch service from the town of Yarmouth. And not Argyle directly, but our seven fire departments that are entirely located and funded by us, and 2 that are partially funded and or located by us, being Lake Vaughan and Kempt. Each of them are asked to pay the same amount, which is $100 a month, which is $1,200 a year, times 9. So that's the amount that is being funded to the town for the utilization of their 24/7 dispatch service. Now, clearly, that's a service, the information that we've received, clearly that's a service that is well regarded, highly regarded by our volunteer firemen. Certainly, and certainly we heard that very quickly in response to what the town recently announced. So the town didn't let the CAOs know on the April 30th. We were advised that they would be disclosing the potential closure of the dispatch service, and they did that fairly quickly because they were entering into negotiations with the union, and that needed to be disclosed as part of a transparent negotiations process. So as part of preparations for union negotiations, the issue of cost of the dispatch service came up, and according to the town, it costs $20,000 a month for the dispatch service. So that is due to the cost of the service and the lack of revenue that they're receiving for the service. And I say that because $100 a month is an extremely good deal for that type of service. We have not been asked to increase the rate. No one has been asked to increase the rate. I think it just, I think that and I can't speak for the town, but I believe the town really saw it as a fire service, as a department. And then when they started to take a look at the details, they realized the true cost of the dispatch service, and then in doing some investigation, realized very quickly that dispatch services can be delivered at a much, much lower cost. And so the concern that was raised by our volunteer firemen, after they realized they weren't abandoning dispatch services entirely, they were just looking at another way to actually deliver it, was the quality of the dispatch services being delivered, and how would that be impacted if it was done out of another location. And the fact of the matter is, we don't know. You know, we have no way to know that because we're not using those services. We can only go by how other people gauge the services that are being provided. So I do know that Digby provides a dispatch service, and I also know that there is a Valley service, but I'm not sure for how much longer. There seems to be a tendency for the dispatch services to be consolidated. And I recently received information coming out of the FSANS conference, the Fire Service Association of Nova Scotia. So many of our volunteers actually attended this conference this last weekend. And there was a motion that the FSANS draft a resolution to the UNSM and the Minister of Municipal Affairs requesting their urgent consideration and prompt action on rationalization of fire dispatch service in Nova Scotia. Now, what they meant by rationalization, what I interpret rationalization to mean is you know, obviously to take a look at it globally and somehow do it more efficiently, or, you know, in some way potentially consolidate the service. So that particular motion was passed unanimously, which puzzled me because that would go contrary to what we're hearing in terms of having the service absolutely local. Perhaps the FSANS felt like the dispatch service was being threatened and that they wanted to protect the service. I really can't. I wasn't in attendance. I can't speak to that issue at this time.
But on this subject, there's no decision for Argyle to be made in the near future. Like, it's gonna be a while before this is sorted out, and Argyle's gonna have to make some kind of decision.
So what the town is asking is, they're saying, look, we're going out for pricing. And so the first ask is, are you in, right? Are you?
Has it been asked yet?
Well, we'll be receiving, yes, yes, the request has come in. No, we haven't seen the request for proposal for additional services. So we've received an email, or I've received correspondence communication from the town asking whether or not when they go out for pricing, whether we be included as a user for that. And I can't see any reason why we would say no at this point, because we don't have an alternate dispatch service just hanging around. So it doesn't bind us necessarily to the request for proposal. We could see the proposal and say, no, we're not that interested in whatever that's happening, and we'll do maybe something a little different. We could, there's a variety, it doesn't bind us to the request for proposal. However, by being involved now, it only makes sense because we would be involved in the process from the very beginning. Right? So I know there's a lot of people upset by this recent decision. And so I think our role is to make sure that dispatch services continue. And at some point, if we're not satisfied with dispatch services, the requests for proposals that are coming in, we may have other decisions to be made around what alternate ways that we could achieve that dispatch service. But, you know, as it stands right now, there's no reason for me to believe that the dispatch service will continue as status quo. And the best case scenario for us as users is that it stays status quo, but at a higher price to our fire departments, which is still a possibility. It's still a possibility. What the town has been quite clear with me is that they are examining their options. So certainly it has caused people to be fearful, and it could also mean that the service will no longer be done in the town. Let's be realistic. It could be either way. So that's the extent of what I know about the issue right now.
So you're the point of contact that the town's using at this point. So you're just gonna have to keep us updated and informed and.
Yeah, I guess from my perspective, what I might require, and I know this is under for information and not for decision, but what I might require is permission from this council to engage in that request for proposal process. That doesn't commit you to that, but it involves you from the beginning. So I would recommend that at this point, not having an alternative to dispatch service at this time.
Is everybody fine with that?
Yeah.
Not before some more discussion.
Okay.
I'd rather
You would,
have some more discussion around that.
question for Ellen? Yes.
Am I okay?
Yes.
Would we not, and the reason I said, am I ready for that, am I okay with that? I certainly would want to get the Fire Association of Argyle to come here and make a presentation to hear their side of the story. If we're sitting here and getting emails, which I did not get, emails about the service that's going to be done, which is the proper way to send it to the CAO, but I would certainly think that the CAO should be sharing with the Fire Association. I think it would be fair to keep a communication lines with them. They're very upset. I can't blame them. From what I've had multiple phone calls. I will be there tomorrow night at the meeting. I would also like to see that our CAO and the councillors, that we hear what's going on tomorrow night. There might be proposals there that we look at, along with what's been suggested that we keep tap with Yarmouth. I think that would be prudent, certainly. But before we jump into any agreement, which I know, and you're very clear, we're not committing to sign on with the town. You're saying that it's better to be there up front when we start. I totally agree with that, but certainly let's not close the door to, which you didn't suggest, but I'm saying let's not close the door. Let's get the Firefighters Association of Argyle to come here and make us a presentation of what we may not be seeing. How many things are there that we may not be seeing as councillors? I listened to CJLS, and that's a point for Gary here. On the weekender, it was very, very informative. Even Mayor Mood jotted down some things that she didn't realize. So I think we have to do our homework on this. There's a lot of people discouraged, especially the volunteer firemen that devote their time. They're put in danger a lot of times, so we should give them the chance at least to come and state their case. And before I make any decision, that's what I'd want to know. That's my point, I guess.
I managed not to mention this. So yesterday, actually it was sent initially by Jeff, by CAO Gushu on the 4th of May, and then I received a copy of it later on. He actually wrote directly to the chiefs, so the chiefs ought to have seen this, and, or if they haven't, it's in their inbox.
Yeah.
And so the email says, and I'm paraphrasing, some of the question was asked in this email to each chief is, before we issue the RFP, we'll be asking the CAOs two relevant questions. One, do you wish for this RFP to also solicit pricing for the fire departments in your jurisdiction? If so, do you have any suggestions for amendments to the draft specifications for the services being sought? In making this offer, our intention is to speed up the decision-making on how to proceed for the provision of dispatch services. So the chiefs were reached out directly by Jeff. I will be happy to forward this email to you as well.
Yeah.
There is some conversation around whose decision is it, in fact, right? Whose decision? We don't actually decide what dispatch services are required. That was always done and paid for by each individual volunteer fire department. So your point is well taken.
Yeah.
It's valid. And so, and I neglected to raise this particular email with you.
It's all right.
So it would be prudent to wait to see what the chiefs have to say. And we can take it from there. And we'll advise the town that we will be awaiting for their response.
Satisfied? Are you more?
And I have a few more questions, or I'll give the others a chance, but one more question. I know Glenn probably going to dig in. Let me get my train of thought here again. I was talking to a couple of councillors from the municipality of district of Yarmouth, and I know it doesn't have anything to do with us, but they said, gee, I wonder how long this agreement has been together, And if it was a concern, like if it's 25 years, let's just say I'm just going to throw a number. Let's say it's 25 years. How come it took till now to see that they're running a deficit? And which we can't answer that. But you certainly made a good point that they probably were looking to cut back on expenses and that, and they pinpointed this. But a lot of the people, the two councillors that talked to me said, how come all of a sudden they came with that all of a sudden? And I said, I can't answer that.
Yeah.
They could just say, hey, we're cost cutting. This is what we found. Here's, that was a question that they had, They said, we give $600,000 to Yarmouth for fire service. Was that being used towards the dispatcher? Then all of a sudden they put it somewhere else. Now they're short this amount of money. I said, hey, you guys will have to dig. I don't know what.
Yeah, we better not start
No,
speculating.
I don't want to start speculating. I wonder what the budget was. 10 years ago, how it was allocated, and what it is. All of a sudden, we hear this.
Yeah.
I wish we could get those numbers.
Yeah, so the only, I certainly can't speak for the town, but I can
No.
say a couple of things that the town has indicated.
Yes.
One is that the salaries, the cost of the services increased 36% over a period of time. So clearly it wasn't the same cost before as it is
Yeah.
now. I believe that this was raised in response to an incoming union negotiation. I don't know that, I can't, that's all I really know about that. And so the timing of, that's why it has been raised at this point, because they were entering union negotiations, and when they
sense.
noticed this when they did their investigations of whatever they were investigating, this was raised at that time, and they raised it immediately to make sure it was transparent to the union. I can't
Yeah.
explain any more than that
That's-
in terms of why the town didn't do it earlier. I don't.
If we want to look at some numbers, and how it was allocated before, you think we could get that, or that might be,
I think that the town would be extremely transparent in giving
Yes.
you the information. I
Yeah.
mean, it's public money. It's
Makes sense.
I mean, it would, I think that if you wanted to see how that had changed over time
Yeah.
to inform your residents and volunteer firemen, I'd be confident that that would be disclosed.
thank you.
Councillor Dignan?
Thank you. The only thing I back up 100% what Councillor Surratt has to say, and that, but I just feel as though the communications on this has not been good at all. I received a call and that from a firefighter in my area, and that jumping on me about what's going on with dispatch. I didn't know a thing about it, and that, and I feel as though we have to these firefighters are on call 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, and that they're not getting paid a cent for the work they do over there. And they're concerned, very concerned as to what's going on, or they wouldn't be there if they weren't concerned about their communities. And now they don't even know who's gonna be dispatching it, or when somebody else may start dispatching them, or what's gonna go on. And even we have a letter in front of us here this evening talking about communications. We don't even know who the letter's from. There's no letterhead. It's not signed by anyone. You know, the letter I'm looking at in front of me anyway, or.
That was what was posted on the town of Yarmouth's Facebook page.
Oh, that's where it came from. I wondered
And that's
too.
another thing. Facebook has been alive here lately since this started. So I feel as though there has to be clearer communications coming right from the top on this one, and letting our firefighters know at least what may be going on, or what we know, because right now, as far as I'm concerned, we don't know a whole lot. And the firefighters out there are, you know, they're hearing little bits and pieces, you know, from one organization or from, you know, one association, and going with it and getting it mixed up. And somebody has to start, you know, at least putting the story out and putting it out straight, I think. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else to add, or we good on that?
I
Just
could,
a waiting game, okay.
I could just add one thing. It said on here, $40,000 per firefighter, 160,000. There's 100,000 that's missing there, but it's somewhere using the, maybe for rent for the building where they're at, phone services and that up, you know. But he said they had a 36% raise in the last 8 years, so I just, some just backtracking numbers here. And so 8 years ago, they were making $15 an hour, roughly. And 2018, they were roughly at $20 an hour on their $40,000. So 15 to 20 in 8 years. And you know, I'm sure a dispatcher, you're classified if you're in the union at a certain level. So maybe they were paid low, and this is why the 36% is so high. I realize it says on the email, it says, or on the paper here, you can't sustain 36% in 8 years. But let's put the facts where they are. If you're making $7.50 an hour, you know, you were making $7.50, and in 5 years you're making $10.50. You know, that's a 40% raise, but guess where you were at when you started? So I guess you have to look at apples with apples, and I think before we jump with those numbers, there's a lot more clarity that has to come out, and certainly I do want to know that the firemen and the fire chiefs know that, you know, that we'll be looking at this very carefully, and hopefully we can invite them in at a meeting so they can explain their end of the story. That's it.
And the only other thing I was gonna say there, I can see the town of Yarmouth's point, you know, where if prices are going up or costs are going up like this, you know, they are not, they don't have to dispatch, you know, for anyone other than the town of Yarmouth. They're doing this at $100 a month for each department, so.
It's a
you know,
gift.
It's a gift, and it has been, so maybe, you know, we have to look at that and working with them in there to try and help resolve these issues, you know, but it's been great that what they've been doing, you know, and like, it's been a gift,
Yeah.
you know, so.
Deputy Warden, views?
With the meeting that they're having tomorrow night, I expect that most fire chiefs and whatever are gonna be there, most of the firemen are gonna be there. And I'm wondering if they have, I mean, if they're only going there to complain about what's happening, they're not gonna gain anything. They're not, it's not. They should be working on, okay, where do we go from here? What do we want to know? Like what you said, so that they're informed about what's going to happen, and hopefully that's what the meeting is going to be about, that they might have some kind of a plan of, okay, what do we do about this now, that this is happening? You can't stop the town from doing it,
No.
for sure, but at least you should know if they do it, what are we gonna do? And this could be like what CEO was saying. Do we go along with the town to get prices and whatever? Do we join together? The one thing that I you know, what bothers me is that if each individual fire department decides on where they wanna go. I mean, there's different services, they don't all have to go to Digby, and all of a sudden you have a couple of fire departments that are at one dispatch, another, that's not gonna work very well. They've gotta be together, especially for mutual aid and whatever, so.
Great
So
point.
hopefully they
Great
have
point.
to stick together and decide where they're gonna go with, if this happens.
They have to discuss what they need.
Well, that's what they have to discuss, and hopefully
Yeah.
that's what that meeting's gonna be about, and not just the bitching session, because you don't get anywheres by doing that.
I think it's well organized from some of the guys that
I
are
hope.
gonna be at the front table. I know the names and
Yeah.
they've done their homework. I bet you'll see.
I think though, also as a council, we have to be with them and work with them in
back 'em
what
up.
they want and back them up.
Right.
Cause I believe, and I can stand to be corrected if I'm wrong, but I think as a municipality, it is our, we're mandated to provide fire protection. And, so, am I right there, sir?
You are, sir.
Thank you. You can't provide fire protection if you can't get dispatched to the calls, so.
That's correct.
Yep, thank you.
Okay.
That's it.
Anything?
Yeah.
So I guess it's just waiting for more information.
Good
See where-
discussion. Good
So,
discussion.
back to his original,
Yeah.
we're all clear with
Oh,
letting?
yeah.
Yep, okay.
Go for it. Go for it.
Okay,
I
so,
would say.
so for my, so I'm gonna wait to see what Wednesday comes and what Wednesday says. One of the other items I'd like to just raise is that while $100 a month for 12 months is an incredibly good price, not every fire department is in the same position financially.
No?
So one of the things that you should be thinking about as a council, and I'm saying this respectfully because it's a leadership issue and you are the leaders, is, one of the solutions might be an increase in funding, and not every fire department is going to be capable to do that. So we have to start thinking about how that would be paid and how that would impact everyone. We have, and so, and not to just, I'm not trying to influence your decision around this, but we do have examples where things were so important that we actually did them ourselves and didn't rely on our 9 fire departments to coordinate. For instance, we have training that we pay for collectively. We don't expect them to pay for it. We do it. So it's coordinated, everybody gets a chance at it, and those that don't have as much money as others don't get denied the opportunity to train their volunteers.
Oh, you're right.
Second is insurance, they're all insured. They are all insured for injury or death, and so we could not just simply give them that fiscal responsibility and tell them, you either do this or you get a bunker gear. Like, you can't make them make that decision.
Great
So
point.
this could be another example. Now, the other thing that the town raised, which I thought was a valid point, was when you have amalgamations of fire departments, which has happened in Barrington, if it's being billed at each fire department, then what happens is the town, let's say Hubbard's Point and Sluice Point decide to be one. And I'm not trying to give anybody ideas.
No.
But if they decide to become one, all of a sudden that 100 per month times 12 times 2 becomes 100 times 12 times 1.
That's right.
So they
What
just
you
lost
say.
$1,200. They just got a better deal, right? We just got a
That's right.
better deal as a consequence of
Yeah.
that. So that may not be the most justified way to calculate the cost of dispatch. So we have to be fair to our partners, and we've asked our partners to be fair around some of the things that we didn't like.
Yep.
And so, now the shoe's on the other foot, and I think we have to be mindful. And if our volunteers say, you know what, we want this and we want it local, we don't want it to change, and that's what we've heard, then you have to understand that there's a fiscal
Absolutely.
consequence
Yeah.
to that. It's not just saying, it's also doing. So,
That's right.
and I don't mean to sound anything other than just trying to inform you that maybe there's a different way to do this.
It'll affect our budget.
That's right.
Yes, it will, no question.
If it goes that way.
It'll affect ours and it'll affect theirs,
Yeah.
and depending, theirs meaning the volunteer fire departments, and we can make certain adjustments, but clearly it will be more costly to someone if the dispatch service does not change at all.
Deputy Warden?
I would say that it's going to change, one way or the other. The town is not going to continue giving the service at the rate that they're doing now. We know that.
Totally.
So,
It'd be crazy.
So, yes, so, whether they increase or they get an outside dispatcher to do that, I don't think that any fire departments are gonna get that for $100 a month. I think we're looking at an increase, definitely regardless of what happens.
You're right.
My feeling is that you won't get anybody to do that. I mean, I was quoted I was given some cost. Now, I don't know where those prices come from, but that it could cost as much as $1,000 to $1,500 a month per fire department. I don't know where that came from, but, you know,
Do you
how
mean
they know.
if it was Yarmouth again, if we stayed with Yarmouth?
No, that if Yarmouth doesn't supply it and they have to go to a different dispatcher, and they were talking about Digby, that it could cost the departments from $1,000 to $1,500 a month. They said, remember at the budget meeting that we had? We had two firemen here. You remember what they said? I asked that question.
Well, you know what, if you look on some of the things from the town that they wrote, they said we could do it for like $30,000 a year.
There you go.
So $30,000 a year, divide, you know, if it was dispatcher,
Yeah, but let's like.
that would be a lot of money, huh?
Let's wait and get the information.
Let's
We're
get some
just
facts.
speculating now.
Yeah.
That's what
Honestly.
he was saying.
If
Yeah.
not, we'll have a
Speculating
whole
here.
bunch of stuff at
Exactly, we don't wanna
9:30 on
throw figures
Facebook.
out there,
Yeah,
but this is.
I'll
what
do it
was-
home for 25.
yeah.
I'll do it home for 25.
24 hours a day, 365 days a year.
I'll hire Glendon.
You figure it out. No,
All
you
right,
won't hire,
good.
you won't hire Langdon.
Okay, we're gonna move on to correspondence and information, if there's no more
Interesting.
discussion.
See when they stop this all down.
I think I've received proper instruction. Thank you.
First item is an evaluation on the webcams. We had two, I believe we had two installed locally, both in Pubnico area, if I remember rightly. At the Village and at the Royal Canadian Legion. Next year, we're hoping there'll be more businesses apply. And we have our built-in permit comparisons for April of 2017 and again for April of 2018. The next item is financial requests, and I see we'll be dealing with them in our next meeting, which will be happening very shortly. Agenda topics for the next meeting. Seeing none, notice of motions for the next meeting. Seeing none, question period. Anything on Facebook? Or on YouTube? I'm sorry. Everybody's talking Facebook, so.
I know what you mean, yeah, oh, yeah.
We have an in-camera session. Do we want to do that now, or we want to do it at the end of the next meeting, or what would be the preference?
In camera, we always, I see.
No, it's in the camera, then we have
Why don't
another
we
public
Do it
meeting
at the end
after.
of the
And-
next
yeah.
meeting.
But if
These
we
people
have,
can stay here.
if we have decisions to make coming after this one, like from the in-camera, I don't know if there will, then we have to go back into this meeting, is that correct?
You could enter the special council meeting for the budget and make
It
a
wouldn't matter.
motion
Okay,
to that effect.
to that effect,
Yeah.
okay.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah,
Robert's rules?
it just complicates things, but I can do whatever you wish.
Well, we can,
Well, gee whiz, that's interesting. I like it, Chris.
Whatever you want.
if you
Chris,
think-
you're a good man.
we give you the responsibility of Robert's rules, so if you think we should go in camera now, you tell us.
It would be preferred to do all the business.
Of one
the
meeting.
regular meeting in one
Exactly.
meeting, and then adjourn that meeting and then return for the budget. meeting.
Well,
Do we have a lot to do in camera? Is there a lot to do in camera?
It's extremely short.
I'm going to be leaving, when you hit the next meeting, I'm going to be leaving, because I traditionally don't stay for the budget meeting, but if it's in camera, then it has a legal issue, I see it's contract negotiations, but I have no idea what it is, maybe it's better that I be here.
Well, I'm sorry, media.
Let's,
But
gonna
you
say-
can- we're gonna be opening again.
Just a
right
few
after.
minutes, yeah, right after, so
Okay.
if you
So
Bring your chair
motion to go on
outside and-
camera.
Yeah, second.
listen to CJLS
Is there
and.
coffee made out there?
And read the paper.